impact of Brazilian poultry being restricted into the EU is not to be underestimated. Brazilian prices are really competitive. The latest figure from Brazil is around 110 euros per kilo in comparison to the latest EU figure averaging around €3 a kilo, reinforcing their really strong global position.
Hello and welcome to the Poultry Edge. With me, Rebecca Tierney. We're focused on all the latest news, information and advice for Irish poultry producers. For this first episode, we will take a look at the current Irish market and trends for poultry production and also get a snapshot as to what is happening in the UK and EU. To discuss all of this, I'm joined by Shauna Jager. Shauna is the Pigmeat and Poultry Executive for Bord Bia. Shauna, you're very welcome to our first Poultry Edge. What is the latest updates from Irish poultry production? Have we seen an increase in production in 2024? And where are our exports destined for, primarily?
Production last year rose by about 3%, with total Irish poultry throughput exceeding 115 million birds, which is primarily made up of broilers, which make up about 92% of the total throughput, and then followed by about 4% hens, 3% ducks, and about 1% turkeys. This year to date, the cumulative poultry kill up to week 32 is nearly 74 million, which is actually up 3% again year on year in comparison to 2024. I suppose the domestic demand has strengthened local sales and then reduced kind of available volumes for exports. So like chicken on the home market, purchases have increased by 7.1%, and the retail prices have increased 2.5% year on year. So that's left reducing availability of volumes for export as well. So last year, exports of primary poultry declined both in value and volume terms. In value terms by about 3% to be around €138 million, and in volume terms by about 4%, which is around 65,000 tonnes. I suppose the main destinations for primary poultry would be the UK, which accounts for 62% of exports, 51 million of which is to Northern Ireland, and 35 million of which is to a GB. Continental Europe took around €34 million of exports last year, which was actually a fairly significant decrease of 22% year on year. Whilst other international destinations kind of held relatively steady. Ghana, for example, taking 6 million, and South Africa taking an increase of 14 million last year. But I think it's also important to note that the value-added poultry exports. So last year they were valued at €190 million. The vast majority of which these go to the UK. The UK makes up around 86% of the total exports for value-added poultry. And then European markets, particularly the likes of the Netherlands and France, would take the remainder of that.
We're seeing definitely an increase in terms of consumption here in Ireland. And that leads me nicely into the next question. As we see beef prices increasing significantly, do we see this leading to an increase in chicken and other poultry products here, along with the fact that we have an increased population?
Yeah, definitely. So the latest Kantar data shows that shoppers have been cutting back on beef and switching to cheaper proteins, like you're saying. And this is really where the likes of chicken, eggs, and even pig meat as well have been consistently the categories that shoppers switch to. Particularly actually during the kind of peak of the summer barbecue season, we saw beef being highly impacted by those rising costs. Like since last year, dropping massive volume share within that total meat category, with chicken, bacon and pork all gaining from that loss. We also see that in the sales volumes, where again, those three categories were the real drivers in that. Chicken itself has seen, as I mentioned earlier, a price per kilo cost increase at retail level, albeit not near as much as beef has increased, but both have experienced some penetration loss due to the price increase. So if we couple that with the volume and value increases we're seeing, that basically means that growth in chicken is being driven by those existing customers rather than new ones, meaning that they're buying more and or kind of trading up to larger or more premium packs within the chicken category. The chicken and eggs also have a really favourable image of clean, lean protein and adds to the demand of these products as well, particularly in a retail landscape now where protein is called out so much across so many categories. And as well as that, the increased cost of the kind of total grocery basket in general also contributes positively, to that perception as chicken and eggs are, a value for money product too. So really positive outlook.
Yeah, certainly it is. The quality assurance logo is something that we should all be very much looking out for. It's a hugely valuable piece of confidence boost in terms of Irish produced food. What can we expect in the coming months around its promotion towards shoppers and towards consumers?
Yeah, definitely, Rebecca. It's obviously very central to what we do, and promoted very heavily by us. And look, it's all powered through the Sustainable Poultry Products Assurance Scheme and the Sustainable Egg Assurance Scheme, which means we can run these domestic mark promotions, alongside the processors and packers, and work to best promote this on the home market. We had our first chicken campaign burst in March, and then the second burst of it coming up now towards the end of September. And similarly for eggs, we had our first burst at the end of April, start of May time, and our second burst now coming in October. So these advertisements, they run across TV, social media, radio, digital audio, and most recently also connected TV, which captures the likes of the RTE player and other on-demand streaming services as well, to kind of capture that younger consumer. We kind of plan this out together with our marketing team. We research and identify the most relevant target consumer for these categories, and then based on what's important to them. For example, for chicken, what's important to the consumers is finding food that's easy to prepare, that fills them up, that makes them perform their best, and is part of a balanced diet. So we've built the campaign with the overall objective, obviously, driving frequency and volume of quality assured chicken, both with the versatility, ease of preparation, and cooking and appetite appeal being the key messages of the campaign, which is just really driving home what's really important to that consumer. And we've had some really excellent engagement results from both the chicken and the egg campaigns so far. But what also is coming down the tracks in relation to Quality Mark is our new advertisement, which is we call the Quality Mark Umbrella campaign. So it's an advertisement showcasing all of the various products underneath the Quality Mark, highlighting the meat, poultry and horticultural products with a very clear call to action message, really bringing the message home to consumers that their food choices, namely choosing food with the Quality Mark, really helps to support Irish farmers. So that's to be expected coming towards the end of this year as well.
That's brilliant. Really, really positive to promote that Irish produced food for sure. So if we move across then to looking at the EU, what production trends are we seeing over there? Is it similar to what's happening in the UK or here in Ireland?
I suppose with the rise in feed prices we saw last quarter of 2024, and then when that came to a halt kind of the start of this year, since then, with feed costs remaining relatively stable, at that same time, broiler prices have been trending upward. So the EU saw a production increase of 4%, with a more modest kind of 1% production increase projected for 2025. The main poultry producers within the EU remain to be the key players we know: Poland, Spain, France, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands. And those 6 member states represent 73% of total EU production. They're really the big players in the EU market. Some of the forecasting estimations made by the EU Commission estimate also that consumption will also continue to increase, keeping the EU self-sufficiency rate steady at around 108%. The UK is kind of similar enough. Poultry output has held steady so far in 2025 in comparison to the same period last year. And across the EU and UK, strong profitability and sustained demand and is suspected to continue kind of supporting that production growth. However, of course, there are emerging concerns, and particularly at the start of this year, and particularly linked to the HPAI outbreaks, the highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreaks in Hungary and in Poland particularly, as well as some level of resurging inflation in some of the member states as well that could impact some of the production growth there.
If we then jump to Brazil, you might just give us a bit of a background for context to our listeners and give us an update on the situation there in Brazil.
In mid-May 2025 this year, Brazil confirmed its first case of highly pathogenic avian influenza at a commercial poultry farm in Montenegro. And that led to the immediate culling of 17,000 birds. And then since then, more smaller cases have been reported, but no further cases have been detected since late May. So it was kind of, those further cases were in between that kind of mid to late May time. In Brazil were really quick to get the outbreak under control, and on June 18th, they declared themselves bird flu free on completion of a 28-day observation period. In that observation time, there was no new cases detected. But despite that official declaration, the EU ban still remains in place and was expected to be lifted late July. But they're now in final negotiations with the agricultural minister in Brazil to look at easing those restrictions. The impact of Brazilian poultry being restricted into the EU is not to be underestimated. Brazilian prices are really competitive. The latest figure from Brazil is around 110 euros per kilo in comparison to the latest EU figure averaging around €3 a kilo, reinforcing their really strong global position.
Obviously a major upset over there in Brazil, and I suppose just to mention at the time of recording maybe that the trade ban hasn't been lifted in Europe as we record. So just moving on then, what do you see as challenges for the Irish poultry industry going forward in the next 12 to 18 months?
The ongoing risk of avian influenza always demands a constant readiness and awareness and a kind of investment and awareness from everyone in the sector, and I suppose sustainability as well, no more than any other agricultural sector, whilst the poultry sector have made some great traction in particularly the kind of renewable energy space, for example, and the sector itself is very efficient. The agricultural sector as a whole have increased environmental responsibility, so it definitely will be a challenge for all in the future, I think.
And I suppose with every challenge comes an opportunity. What do you think lies in that area for us in terms of opportunities?
The growth in consumption around that strong domestic demand, it's a really positive story for Irish poultry, for chicken and for eggs. And with the consumption continuing to rise and the positive perceptions that Irish consumers have of these products, it's a very positive future outlook for the sector. Obviously, the quality assurance, brand identity, so leveraging that and showcasing, that this is a high quality product, and it offers a kind of point of difference for Irish poultry as well, both at home and abroad. And of course, as much as I mentioned it as a challenge as well, it's an opportunity around the sustainability side. Irish poultry is very efficient and has made some great commitments and traction, as I said, in the space of sustainability. So I think it's a real strength of the industry as well.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with you there, Shauna. Thank you for the very up-to-date information on what's happening out there in our industry here in Ireland and further afield.
Thank you for having me, Rebecca.
That's all for our first podcast, but before I go, I just want to let you know about our upcoming broiler conferences taking place in October. On Tuesday the 21st, we will be in the Hillgrove Hotel in Monaghan, and on Thursday the 23rd of October, we will be in the Long Court House Hotel in Newcastle West, Limerick. For more information on these events, go to teagasc.ie to register. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review and follow the Poultry Edge wherever you get your podcasts.